Tell me, have you ever experienced the intriguing journey of an arranged marriage? A question for those who entered into an arranged marriage: how was your first wedding night? Were you embarrassed? My parents and aunt made an agreement with the bride's family. I returned to my home country and met her once before the wedding. On our first wedding night, she was very shy, hiding under the blanket, giggling, and not letting me pull it off. Nothing happened that night. The next day, she called her mother and talked to her for half an hour. Later that evening, as we were lying in bed watching TV, she looked at me and, with a trembling voice, said her first full sentence to me: "I have no idea how to do this." I laughed to ease the tension, gently hugged her, cracked a few more jokes, and 2 hours later, we were intimate. Now we have 2 children. Arranged marriages aren't as bad as they might seem. In my homeland, they're very common. Sometimes, grooms don't even see their brides until the wedding. My wife and I were lucky because sometimes the newlyweds' parents sit outside the bedroom on the first night to confirm the bride's virginity. My first marriage can be called arranged. When I was 12, my husband's family agreed with my father that I would marry their middle son when I turned 18 and finished school. I already knew him, his sister was my best friend, and he was friends with my brothers. We barely talked until our official engagement, when he paid the mahr, the bride's gift. Over the 6 months between the engagement and the wedding, we talked, went on dates, and spoke on the phone to get to know each other better. I liked him more and more, but I wouldn't say I was in love with him. Over time, I grew to love him. He was a kind, caring, pleasant guy and treated me well. He supported my decision to attend university. We enjoyed being together, loved traveling, and shared an interest in photography. We planned to have children after I graduated from university. We were married for only 2 years before he passed away in a car accident. I think if we had lived together longer, everything would have worked out. As for intimacy, everything was fine. Before marriage, we were both virgins. On our first wedding night, I tried to do what I had seen in adult films, though it wasn't great. But the more we practiced, the better it got. I'm from Jordan. Now I live in Korea with my second husband. Our marriage wasn't arranged. We met at a party, and we have a 2-year-old son and a dog. My wife and I are from a Muslim country, but her parents live in the capital and are quite modern. However, she has relatives in small villages who are far less progressive. One of her third cousins wanted to get married. His mother started looking for a bride, but it took a long time. Some girls were deemed not traditional enough, while others didn't work out because their parents thought the groom's family was too strict, even for a remote village. They set conditions: the bride had to be Muslim, wear a hijab, pray 5 times a day, and so on. Finally, they found a girl who met all the requirements. His mother agreed, the girl's parents agreed, and they arranged the wedding within a couple of weeks. I couldn't attend the wedding, but my wife later told me it was a very traditional Muslim ceremony, and I regret missing it because it must have been fascinating. The wedding ended early, and all the guests went home. My wife and her family drove to a hotel an hour away from the village. Suddenly, my father-in-law's phone rang. I should note that my father-in-law is highly respected by all his relatives because he has a good job in the capital and interacts with influential people. It was around 1 in the morning when his older sister called and asked him to return to the village immediately because something had happened. Assuming it was about money, people often ask him for it, he demanded an explanation. And here's the funniest part: the groom was raised in a very strict family and had never been with a woman, not even on a date. The bride had a similar background. After the ceremony, they went to the bedroom and realized neither of them had any idea what to do next. They had never watched adult films, had no sex education, and no one had thought to explain what to do in bed. So, they called the aunt, the eldest family member, to explain everything. But the aunt decided that, as a woman, she couldn't explain such things to a man, as it would be awkward. So, she called her younger brother, my father-in-law. He didn't want to drive an hour back for such nonsense, especially since it wasn't his concern, and there were surely others nearby who could help. My wife, her mother, and her sister laughed hysterically, unable to believe this could happen in 2013. No one could have anticipated such a problem, or measures would have been taken. He advised them to find someone experienced nearby and said he'd come if they couldn't find anyone. Thankfully, they found a guest who agreed to talk to the groom and explain what to do with his wife and how to consummate the marriage. About a week later, my wife returned and told me that something apparently went wrong because the next day, people noticed the bride's gait was odd. They even had to see a gynecologist because something that happened that night caused the poor girl pain. We still don't know what he did wrong. The couple was very embarrassed about the situation and tried to keep it secret. We only found out because they asked my father-in-law to talk to the groom. This happened in a small, remote village in Azerbaijan. Though it's hard to believe, it's one of my favorite stories I've ever heard. I don't think this happens often in arranged marriages. I was a victim of an arranged marriage. I lived in the USA, while my parents were in India. They arranged the marriage, met the girl, were satisfied, and agreed with her parents on the wedding. I was only informed when everything was decided. She was beautiful and educated, so I didn't object. We talked on the phone many times before the wedding, but things didn't go as I expected. On our first wedding night, she wouldn't let me touch her. I thought she was scared. She was 4 years younger than me, so I stopped trying. The next morning, she said she was indeed afraid of her first time. I decided we could wait. I waited a whole month, after which she said she'd be intimate when she came to the USA. A few days later, she arrived but didn't even meet me. It turned out she had been in a relationship with another guy before our wedding, which is why she didn't let me touch her. She disappeared for 3 months, then emailed me demanding a divorce and a lot of money. To answer the question, I'd say our entire arranged marriage was awkward. My marriage can be called arranged. I was born in the UK, like my mother, but my father is from Pakistan. After I finished college and worked for a couple of years, my parents asked if I wanted to get married. My mom suggested I marry my cousin. At first, the idea seemed repulsive, but she asked me not to rush my decision. A couple of months later, my mom said her sister, my aunt, told her my cousin wanted to talk to me about it. It turned out my mom had tricked me because my cousin wasn't even aware of the idea, but her mother was open to the marriage. So, my mom orchestrated it to change my mind. The plan worked. I agreed to meet her. My cousin was an attractive girl. Our meeting was probably the most awkward first date in human history. The dinner lasted 3 hours, during which we covered every aspect of getting to know each other, what we like, dislike, what attracts us in people, our personality traits, and so on. As I said, it was very awkward, but by the end of the meeting, we were practically ready to marry each other. It was unimaginable, nothing like that had ever happened to me before. About 2 weeks after our engagement, we were texting, and I sent her a slightly inappropriate joke. She responded, and it led to full-on sexting. Yes, 2 weeks after agreeing to marry my cousin, we were sending each other risque messages. Around the same time, I learned she knew nothing about intimacy. A couple of weeks later, I sent her a few photos of my body, excluding private parts, and we started exchanging such pictures. 2 weeks after that, she came to our house, and we left under the pretext of buying onions at the supermarket and kissed for the first time. I was surprised by how our parents reacted. In our fairly religious family, I thought they'd forbid us from even seeing each other before the wedding, but we could do whatever we wanted except be intimate, which was implicitly forbidden. Our wedding night wasn't awkward because we had spent almost a year before the wedding talking about it. I had to break the ice because we wanted each other so badly. I have Punjabi and Hindu roots. Recently, I got engaged to a girl introduced to me by relatives. We dated for a few months before making a final decision. We're only engaged for now. I agreed to marry her out of respect for my parents, who gave me everything and never restricted me like some of my friends' parents did. My fiancée is the daughter of my aunt's friend. We're from the same region, and our great-great-great-granduncles held equally significant positions. There's been a lot of awkwardness in our relationship, even though we both grew up in Canada. I consider myself fairly westernized in terms of dating and relationships, but I can't say the same about her. I'm sure she's still a virgin, while I haven't been for a long time. There was a period when I lived like a reckless playboy. The problem is, I can't even bring up the topic with her because she seems immature about these things. Every time the conversation even touches on kissing, she starts giggling, making it impossible to talk openly about intimacy. She's very sweet, but we have no common interests or hobbies, and we perceive humor differently. Still, I think some differences are good. I feel lucky to have met her. If I had to choose between my past lifestyle and her, I'd choose her without hesitation. Honestly, I partly agreed to the marriage to tie my hands and leave my past behind. Since our wedding is set for 2 years from now, I broke up with my friends with benefits to stay faithful to my fiancé. The next 2 years will be tough on my right hand.